Before I get into showing more ways how to collaborate and share components and plans, I want to show you 3 ways to create a component as it has applicability in some of the upcoming videos. So look at this quick plan that I've created. It's an orbit with a path associated with it. The key thing that I wanted to show you here is for like this orbit, it flies over here. I have an immediate component set up. But if I drill down into that immediate component, you can see I've got some camera commands set. I have it stopping, switching to photo mode, selecting JPEG. I've got it set to do an interval and take a picture every 2 seconds. And then if I go back to the achieved, it starts capture. So it's going to do an interval image every 2 seconds as it makes around this orbit. And then once it finishes the orbit, it'll fly over to the second component, which is a path. And at the path, I had it set to fly over to 100 feet still. I think this is set at 150 feet, although it doesn't really matter. And then again, I set up an approach. Now I've got it set to move it over to video mode, make sure it's an MP4 format, and then again, start the video. So it's going to do an orbit, take interval picture, switch over to here, take video. Now, here's our mission. Let's assume that we wanted to do this exact orbit, this exact same setting, the same altitude, everything the same, but maybe I want to do it around this building here or anywhere else. I'm just going to keep it simple around this building. Now, obviously, I could right-click here. I could do a new component. I could replicate everything I've done there manually. Or I could use something called the clipboard. So if I go back to my orbit, I click on orbit and I look up here, there is an option that says copy to clipboard. If I click on that and then I look in the upper right-hand corner over here, you'll see a little number 1 comes up. So if I click on that, you can see an orbit at 150 feet, 360. It has all the information right there. I can click here to delete it, but let's leave it right now. So now, let's say I wanted to do my orbit right here. I right-click here. I say new component, but instead of from repository, instead of creating it manually, I can paste from clipboard. And boom, it's dropped in that orbit with the exact same settings as before. And I can quickly move it over here. Now I can move it, I can change it. So let's say I want to make it smaller or larger. I can still do that, but it's based initially upon this orbit setting that I created before. So that's a useful way of quickly creating and replicating a component that you created multiple times. So let's show another way to do it. And this is to actually physically create a component. So just for grins, let me delete this third orbit again. And I'm going to go back to my orbit again. And instead of clicking on copy to clipboard, I'm going to click on this ellipse and I'm going to say add to repository. So if I click on add to repository, it's going to ask me where I want to create that component. Let's put it in my public repo. So it now added the new orbit to the test user test repo, public. Now, if I right click here and I say new component and I say include from repository, it'll show the latest one that I just added up top, and I can click on this. And again, just like before, it's going to drop that exact same setting. Now there is a little difference between the two of those, and I'm going to show that in the next video. Let's set the stage one more time. So you've seen me copy it with a clipboard. You've seen me copy it with creating it from a repo. I'm going to show you one other way to create a component, and it's going to be probably the more common way that you use components. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to go back to the repo level. So now I'm in my test repo public, and I have my plans here, but here I've got my components. So let me click on components. I'm going to click on new component, and actually, interesting, I could actually paste from the clipboard and create it from here as well, but let's create it from scratch because I want to create a component that's specific for camera commands. That's how I want to use this. I want this thing to be set up in an optimal setting to do, let's say, video. So I'm going to click on list. It doesn't even matter physically where this is. And I'm going to call this Eric's optimal video settings. So these are the settings that I want when I am shooting video. I can add some tags if I want, but I'm just going to hit finish. I'm sitting here at my optimal video component settings that I want to create, and I am going to do a new component. And I might not have mentioned this to you before, but you can search from here directly. It's actually a really good way to do things. I'm going to start just by making sure that the camera is stopped. Then I am going to make sure that I am set to video mode. Let's add in a few more settings. Let's set in the video file format as MP4, and let's set the ISO to auto. So what I did here is by adding in multiple components, I have created my own component with these 5 commands: stopping the camera, setting it to video mode, making sure it's set to MP4, setting the ISO to auto, and setting the auto exposure lock. So these are the 5 settings that I've set right now. Obviously you could do more. I'm just setting this for example's sake. So I just want to show you this is now available, so that if I went back to my test plan and I added a new component, let's say a path, so now I've got another path, orbit to a path to an orbit to another path, but I want to make sure that my settings are set to what I want. I can click on 4, I can say set immediate component, include from repository, and then include my optimal video settings. And that way it'll automatically set these settings that I assign. Now I want to leave it there because I want to show you something later, but that is something that is available to you right now.